Hi everyone, my name is Emily and I'm the Young Adult Librarian at the Rock Island Public Library, and the book I'm going to tell you about today is Mouse Volume 1. And this is a survivor's tale, but the other subtitle is My Father Bleeds History. And so there are two volumes of this graphic novel. It's been in the news a lot lately, it's been banned in some places, and what I didn't realize was how long it's been out. It was actually first serialized in 1980. I believe it was released, serialized through 1991, and then I think it did, win the Pulitzer in 1992. And this is one of the first graphic novels I ever read that, was, I guess, something that achieved a critical acclaim on this level. I think graphic novels, as a cartoonist, Art Spiegelman in the book, he reckons with the fact that when he's writing this, his family is surprised that, I didn't know comics could be like this. Like, I don't read comics, but, they can really tell a story like this. And the story in this book is about Art Spiegelman and his father, Vladek. And as he's writing the book, it's him talking to his father about what he went through during World War II and surviving not just his time in a concentration camp. In fact, this first volume, I think it ends in 1942 when they've just gotten to Auschwitz. And, it's the story of his parents meeting, how Vladek met Art's mother, Anya, and, their struggle to survive as the war in Europe escalated. Because being Jewish meant that they were targeted for a long time. Before they ever ended up in a concentration camp, there was the issue of, well, where can we live safely? It got to the point where the Nazis just began, at first, certain powerful Jewish figures, within the community would be arrested, and then later on, certain crimes that, the Nazis, maybe they would overlook, or maybe they would arrest people and put them to death, like dealing in food or goods without coupons. That was something that could get you killed. And, at one point, people are executed for this, and, Vladek is thinking about the fact that he'd done business with these people. It was luck that he wasn't also, caught and killed in this. And it's just, the inhumanity of the Nazis, certainly. But it's also a story about how regular people during the Holocaust, their indifference got a lot of people killed too. It's not just the evil of genocide, it's the evil of regular people just, turning a blind eye to this, or helping the Nazis, thinking, well, I don't want to be on their bad side, so I'm going to try and curry favor with these people. And it's also, in writing about this, Art Spiegelman gets to know his father better. He's, known his father as, there's parts of the book where Mala, the woman who's taking care of his father as he gets older, she complains about this guy because he can be a hard person to be around. He's somebody who's worked and saved all his life, but he's still always afraid of not having things, not having enough. He'll find things in the trash, or he'll take napkins from restaurants just so he has these things. And it bothers Art too, why do you do this? Why can't you just buy some wire? You found this wire in the trash, and it's no, you can't buy this, it's good. And of course, this is something that his father does, it's part of him, living with the trauma of what he suffered during the war, this idea that I'm going to make sure I have enough, now I'm in this place where, okay, things seem secure right now, but things could change, I just want to be sure that I'm safe and I have enough and my family has enough. And just as the book goes on, Art Spiegelman talks to his father and, understands that what he suffered during the war, it was just so huge, ultimately, in the 1960s, Art Spiegelman's mother, Anya, she committed suicide. And, for the whole family, she didn't leave a note, but the family understood that this was, part of the trauma of living through the Holocaust. It was part of, just her surviving something that, millions of people did not survive. And at one point, Art is looking for his mother's diary. And at the very end of the book, his father admits that he was having a bad day once, and he burned it. He burned it and some other old papers. And it's just this horrible feeling for Art because, now it feels his mother, she's dead again. because he's never going to get to read these words that she wrote down. You know, he's never going to find out what she thought and felt about experiences she had in her life. And so it's one person trying to grapple with just what his family lost, you know, like in struggling to kind of get to know his father, who, you know, Vladek can be a difficult person, but he's had a very difficult life, of course. And, you know, it's understanding the losses that this person has suffered are just so huge that, you know, he's lost so many family members and friends, and it's really like to have to go on living after all of this. It's been a huge challenge. But of course, I mean, Art is still angry. You know, he's still living with the generational trauma of being, you know, the son of European Jews who did survive the Holocaust. And, you know, even living in New York, it's like, okay, well, my father and my mother's trauma, it's been part of my life. And in this burning of the diary, he calls his father a murderer. You know, this is something where, you know, his father gets angry, you know, how could you call me that? And it's like, okay, but that's how he feels, because, I mean, you've taken this part of the family's history away. I think at one point, it might have been in volume 2, but, you know, they talk about surviving and how, like, stories of survivors, you know, they're seen as heroic. And, you know, the conversation turns to the fact that, well, many people didn't survive the Holocaust. You know, do you think those people were less heroic? You know, what do you mean? Like, they didn't die because they didn't deserve to live. You know, this wasn't a question of heroism or being smart enough or good enough. Like, it was luck. A lot of your survival at this time in history was just luck. And so, you know, this does change Art Spiegelman's kind of thinking of this. Well, yeah, you know, I really owe my life and, you know, my father's life, my mother's life, you know, they were lucky in many, many ways. It wasn't just that they made the right choices. And another thing about this story that is interesting is the way, you know, I think a lot of Holocaust stories, or war stories at least, you know, in America, the narrative around World War II is, well, things were bad in Europe, but then the Americans came in and we saved everybody. And of course, you know, the story of the Holocaust by people, you know, who lived it, by, you know, the son of a survivor, you know, it tells a different story. You know, it talks about the fact that even prior to the Holocaust, Jewish people were persecuted, and even after, you know, this is something where to this day we have to live in a world where people try and deny that this terrible genocide even happened. So it's a fascinating story of history, but it's also a book that is very relevant now. I mean, it never won't be, because we live in the world in which these things happened. There's 2 volumes of Maus, and they're well worth reading. And thank you for watching. I will see you again soon.